Good afternoon. My name is DeMarcus Sharkey. I'm an MBA student at the American Military University, and I'm an intelligence officer in the United States Air Force.
And I'm Korbett Mosesly, and I recently graduated from the Evergreen State College with my master's degree in public administration.
And this is Torqly.
So Washington State nearly leads the nation in job growth, and much of that growth is in the construction sector. There's so much growth that contractors are struggling trying to find and meet their demands to find skilled talent. It's one of the biggest issues that they face. And there's an opportunity to really connect to those opportunities. I'm really glad that Bruce Danmeyer was here today and talked about the economic development that's happening in our region, in Seattle, and across the state of Washington in terms of our roads, our bridges, our buildings, affordable housing. There's a really great opportunity to make sure that people are getting access to those family wage jobs. And we're going to talk a little bit about that.
Even with that type of opportunity, a national survey was conducted of 1,600 contractors, and it was found that 78% of them cannot find the right employees for the job. We did a little bit more research and saw that this was a systemic issue all throughout the United States, and even here in our beloved town of Tacoma. Korbett and I, being involved in the community, know that Tacoma has great talent to offer. As a veteran, there are a number of veterans that are transitioning out of the military who could benefit from this opportunity if the contractors knew where to look. Additionally, with Korbett having worked with the Tacoma Housing Authority, we know that low-income and public housing recipients would jump at the chance to leave minimum wage-paying jobs to pursue $15, $16, and even upwards of $25 an hour jobs within their own community. So now we have the problem. Contractors can't find this great group of talent. We've located the great group of talent. Now how do we bring the two together? And like that, Torqly was born. So Torqly is a database that connects employers directly to the employees, and we do it quickly. And Korbett can tell you all about it.
So Torqly it's a recruitment service for businesses. Businesses pay a small fee for the license to have access, and it's free for candidates to log in and to submit their information. So what we are is we help businesses connect with employees that meet the skills that employers are looking for, and we provide access to a talent database, a talent pool. So employers can, instead of doing a job posting where they wait for a response for the pool to kind of vet and go through that process, this really streamlines everything because we do the recruitment for the talent pool. And so an employer can log into the system and rank based on certifications, experience, assessments, things that are uploaded in the system that have been pre-verified to help them access that talent more quickly. And that list is ranked. So it's not just a straight list of a talent pool, but you can put the criteria on that the employer is looking for so that you can easily find the top tier talent and pull folks off. But it doesn't also, it's more than just accessing that talent pool. There's also the opportunity to do the targeted hiring that's required on some HUD contracts depending on what funding is available. And for instance, I'll just share this. So certain projects, most of the construction projects are private. About 25% are public funded projects. Some that are HUD funded actually have a targeted hiring requirement to target people that are in housing programs and those kinds of things. So this gives them the opportunity to target those folks and to target local residents to get access to that talent. So there's a couple of customers involved, and the main one is the employers that are doing the hiring, that want to access talent. Given that there's a big skilled gap, this gives them the opportunity to kind of get in, get the folks that they need, and quickly with precision. But there's a couple other opportunities in terms of customers for Torqly. The other one being education, colleges and training programs that want to market to the candidate database for them to scale up, and that's an important dynamic too.
So with contractors as a customer and those types of programs, we also can look at state and local governments. So they also need to meet those needs. They're interested to know who exactly is being put to work, and through Torqly, we can share that information. Now, with those type of customers comes some pretty solid competition. Our biggest competitor will be staffing agencies. So staffing agencies, they have the pool of talent, and they can connect the employer to the employee. But we lean that process. So we empower the employer. A construction worker on the job can log into Torqly and type in exactly what they're looking for. If they're looking for a flagger, they can say, we're looking for a person with this certification, and they can hire them. They can pull up their information, look at their references, and hire them right on the spot, completely making that process lean and efficient. Additionally, contractors typically spend anywhere between $500 to $1,000 on hiring one employee. And that's just for the one time that they've hired them. Torqly is a very competitive price. We charge contractors a flat fee of $1,000 for a month, and they are able to access our database during that month as much as they would like, and they can hire as many employees as they would like. So we are both effective and efficient.
And there's a couple other advantages too, in that some like job boards, which may come up, you guys may ask about, well, what's different like with Monster or Glassdoor or something like that? This is a very different process. That's about putting out an advertisement and waiting for a response for those, for a candidate pool to return, and kind of hope that you hit the right time in the month or the right time in the year where those folks are actually looking for work. This is a preset candidate pool that's within one targeted industry that contractors can pull into. So that's one advantage. But the main advantage, I think, is the stickiness of Torqly. So it's more than just a pool. It's more than just a candidate database. It's actually a candidate community. And we use that term very intentionally. What we are offering candidates is to make sure that we send out messages about certifications to help them be more competitive, right? So there's candidates, if we see a number of searches within the database of people looking for asbestos certifications, and we don't have people in the candidate database that have that certification, we can send out a message about what kinds of training opportunities and educational opportunities that can help them skill up and be more competitive within the database. So there's a relationship there. So one is the stickiness. Two is the precision of the search. So rather than doing an announcement and waiting for that pool, you can go in there and find the folks that you need. And so that precision, being able to meet that targeted hiring requirement. One example would be the city of Tacoma has, I'm not sure if you know this, but a LEAP requirement. So they have some additional incentives to target Tacoma residents and Pierce County residents on publicly funded construction jobs. But that list does not exist currently. There's not a place where you can go and find those folks that are LEAP eligible folks. The same with housing authority projects, and so that's another opportunity. So there's one, the stickiness of the website. There's two, the precision of the hiring, and three, there's allies, and allies would be which kind of is a little bit of our inside game in terms of housing authorities that have an vested interest as a funder of construction projects that are across the country, that want to make sure that their residents get access to family wage jobs, even if only to free up some subsidized housing units.
But in order to do that, we have to focus on the next step. And the next step for us is to really develop our software. Since we're software-centric, we want to make sure that we create a product that is easy to use for the employer and a very comfortable interface for the employees. So that will be our first priority with the funding. Additionally, we have to market. In order to build a very comprehensive database, we're going to have to put our feet to the pavement. Going out, working with public-private partnerships, other veteran organizations, and even the city to find these candidates who are capable and willing to work.
Let me tell you a little bit about some of the traction that we have. So it's not just an idea that we just have the vision for today. We've actually tested out some of these methods in terms of the outreach. Last year, in February, did one outreach event here in Tacoma at Evergreen State College Tacoma campus with 168 people that were interested in the trades, and connecting them to contractors and unions and other folks that were hiring. And so a number of those folks went to work, but some of of them weren't ready. Some of them wanted to get access to short-term pre-apprenticeship training programs, and we helped them connect to those folks. And so then we tracked them through the process, and when they graduated out of those programs, we helped provide a list to Absher and Walsh and some of the local construction companies for them to hire local talent. And that's been really successful, and they've gotten some really good folks that, one person, for example, James, actually went from working at Taco Time at minimum wage to now working at $27 an hour and able to support his mother and his two daughters. And it's one of the best employees that contractor said that they have gotten in a long time. One of the hardest working persons, and they're training him to be a foreman. So I think we might be at our time. But
Questions, please.
Okay, if nobody wants to jump in first, I'm going to. So talk with me a little bit about your rollout strategy. It sounds like you're focused right now on the local market in Tacoma. Obviously, the internet's accessible worldwide. Mm-hmm. Do you move city by city? You're rolling out nationwide to start with? Just give me a little background.
Okay. So yes, definitely starting with our relationships. Relationships in Pierce County and the construction trades is really important, and we've been able to build those relationships over the last year and a half with the Pierce County Building and Trades Council, with other construction projects. So starting here locally with those relationships is a good strength that we have, and making sure our folks get to work. But another hot market would be the Seattle market too. There's more cranes in the sky in Seattle than there is anywhere else in the nation right now. But to be able to grow and kind of starting strong, perfecting it here locally and in Washington State, and then dropping in and using what we call outreach in a box. And outreach in a box is that marketing package that works for us to go into other markets and other sectors, with probably a housing authority as a hub and as an ally in that community, since they do some of the funding, to be able to make connections. But cities could also be a good partner too, and we've been able to partner with the city of Tacoma and are working through some strategies where they can license Torqly to meet their LEAP requirements and provide those licenses to all of the contractors on their publicly funded projects. And so we're excited about that opportunity and looking forward to presenting to them.
And as he mentioned, with that type of opportunity, with the funding, we really need to do research. A lot of that has to do with market research. So before we immerse ourselves outside of Washington, we want to make sure that we treat Washington well first. So really having an understanding of what it takes to get this up and running, and then, as he said, developing that outreach in a box, focusing on that software. That outreach in a box is a type of software that we're going to use for marketing, but doing that research and really putting out a quality product and not making decisions haphazardly. So we do hope to grow, but we're scaling slowly.
Mm-hmm.
I have a couple multi-tier questions here. I
Great.
apologize. So you're talking about developing software. Are you working with contractors to get their perspective on pieces and everything? And
Absolutely. So we are working with a team from Olympia, and then we've actually already kind of demoed some of the database stuff and some of the back-end work of how things work, the relationship between the databases. It's all we're building that code from scratch. We have a simple demo that we've created, and we're continuing to kind of build on that. So yes.
And how do you find people? I mean, you have a high demand industry right now. How are you finding qualified applicants to fill the?
I think that's going to be some of the uniqueness in what we offer, is because we have to do that outreach a little bit differently. And so one example was when we did the outreach for the Evergreen event. For that local neighborhood, we put iPad kiosk stations in barbershops. And so we're thinking out of the box. We gave flyers to community centers and community leaders to pass out about the upcoming event. It may be online webinars to kind of get that first leg of what is this thing and how do we do it. Figuring out how do we leverage, how do we stay lean, how do we use what's going to connect with people and use market research based on the target audience of not just unemployed folks, but like Bruce Danmeyer talked about, underemployed folks. How do we help them move forward? There's people that are stacking boxes and doing general labor work right now for $15 an hour that would love the opportunity to move into construction trades if they knew what that process looked like.
And then lastly, the $1,000, how did you identify that number, and then what kind of expenses do you have underneath that to burn it off?
Want me to do that one too? Okay. So So one, with some construction projects, they actually put together an outreach budget that could be, if it's a publicly funded project, it may be $30,000 to $70,000 to do outreach to meet those targeted hiring requirements. But then in this highly competitive market where contractors are looking for talent and don't just want anybody to apply that just meet the minimum requirements, they want the top tier stuff. That's what the service will offer them, is us to do that outreach, them to kind of look at that list and peel those top candidate folks off of that list. But it's competitive in the fact that it's $500 right now to do a job listing on Monster. So the fact that if you have a construction project and you need to hire 3 folks, and maybe they're in a different kind of sector, and you need a flagger and a general labor and somebody else to do cement footings, having access to that pool and seeing who's available as like almost a virtual hiring hall, you're able to pull that talent in much quicker and get access to folks. Do you have anything you want?
So the last part he explained, the budget and the expense, that I can't make that any better how he explained that. But as far as for the customer, how we are making Torqly better, we're also working with the city. So we're finding out what the cities want. What do you need, or what are the requirements that you look for when looking for a contractor? Mm-hmm. So that way we get a full, much more comprehensive picture of how to develop our software. Additionally, we're going to look at the next question, nonprofit organizations. So going to those nonprofit organizations, especially as a veteran, looking at companies like Hire Our Vets, Work of Honor, and other public-private partnerships where it's their job to try to get these vets hired, and they are willing to do whatever it takes or work with you to make that happen. So we're going to definitely spend our time working with them.
Thanks.
And on the outreach side, contractors, that field, I think they just need help accessing the talent that we have, especially if you're a contractor coming from Oregon and doing work in the Pierce County area. You need help to kind of access what the talent is, and so this is an opportunity to do that, and for the city to meet some of the LEAP requirements like veterans and city residents and that kind of work.
If you got the 25 grand, what would you use it? Where would you put it?
Software. Software is where it would need to go. So we need to bring that product to market so we can start getting people to work. So that's our number one priority right now, is building that software, getting the demos together, but really getting it together and bringing that product to the market.
Well, just to piggyback on that, what's the total need?
So we're still kind of finalizing some of those pieces. We expect to use about $50,000 initially for the software development, but that's partially low because we have a really excellent team and we have already done some of this pre-work, and so we've invested some of our own money into doing that software development and that planning piece. Altogether, we'll need to figure out what the true cost is for marketing, but the fact that we have some local contracts already on the wire, we have our first proposal that was accepted is actually with the contractor in Seattle, and so we already have some money on the books to in terms of the first contract to that's on a HUD project. It's a 100-unit memory center, and they have some targeted Section 3 hiring requirements that they need an outreach plan for. With the city of Tacoma, so it's kind of figuring out that right mix. So it's one, that software development, but we may be at, $150,000, $200,000 in terms of our true startup costs, and we're actually we're actually looking more top line, so we're actually not looking to get paid off of the business, but looking at a 3-year strategy where we can figure out what that top line investment will be for for a larger payout down the road.
And if we were to win, we would definitely take advantage of those services. That's definitely what we could look. We really look forward to is working with more experienced people to help us really refine our vision and bring it to fruition.
Yep. Just one. We did add one thing that we also have done is made sure that we secured a law firm to look at our contract and make sure that our structure is the right structure, that it's set up for investments, and that we're thinking about how we protect the IP and other kinds of contractual arrangements.
With that, we thank you all for your time. I'm sorry. Do you have a question?
No.
Okay. No. We thank you all for your time, and we look forward to adding you all to the Torqly team. Thank you.
Thank you.